We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday night. I want to say thanks to C Temptation for being on the show yesterday. And today we have another guest, somebody you know very well, Eric from Iowa. And Eric, thanks for taking the time out today to join us. I've been looking forward to talking to you because there's some fucked up shit, and we need a forensic fucked up shit artist. So we brought you in.
Well, that's the first time I've been called that, but okay.
I just
No,
made it
thanks
up.
for having me. Thanks for having me. I like giving my perspective. I know you mention all the time that I get into the details, and
Yeah.
I do look at some of the details of what's possible and try to keep things with a more mellow tone without getting so amped up and worked up because it's really easy to get caught up in the emotion of everything that's going on.
Yeah, it really is. And we see Donald Trump doing that. And every time he does, he fucks up. So maybe take a lesson from that. First thing I wanted to bring up is not really that important, but I take a lot of joy in it. I've been watching a lot of clips from Fox News, and they are upset. They are apoplectic by what Gavin Newsom is doing by mocking and mimicking Donald Trump. I was watching one clip where the lady says, "It's so immature. If I was his wife, I'd tell him to stop it right now because that is immature. That's not becoming of a leader." And then when asked about it, Gavin Newsom said, "Well, that's interesting, but why did you not say that when Donald Trump has done the same thing for 10 fucking years?" Um, I like this because it gives me the opportunity to say to those people what they said to us for many years. And that's fuck your feelings, you fucking snowflakes. Deal with it. But, I've talked about this before. We can do a lot of things to go after Donald Trump. What Gavin Newsom is doing, the making fun of him, the embarrassing him, uh, that's the one thing that works. And we're seeing it on Fox News. And notice, if you will, Donald Trump calls out everybody. He's going to hit somebody hard. Has he mentioned Gavin Newsom in the last couple of weeks? Not once, because he
No,
knows if he engages Gavin Newsom, shit's going to fly.
right. And the funny thing is, but then if you point out to this, like that Fox News that it's just copying Donald Trump's style, crickets. They won't mention a word about
No.
Donald Trump's style. Oh, that's just being a tough and strong leader. They will try to walk both sides of that line at the exact same time because they don't want to upset the dear leader, you know. But what Gavin Newsom is doing is working. I don't know if this is going to springboard him into 28 as a potential leader for the Democrats, as a presidential candidate. I know there's a lot of people watching trying to figure out could he be the next person, and they may not want to vote for Gavin Newsom. To those people, here's what I'm going to say. No matter what you think of Gavin Newsom, if he is the Democratic candidate, you need to hold your nose and vote for him, no matter who the Republicans run. It doesn't matter. We can't keep playing this identity politics bullshit of I didn't get the perfect candidate, so I'm not gonna vote. You did it with Hillary, you did it with Kamala Harris, uh, and we even heard some of it with Joe Biden. Is oh you're gonna make me vote for Joe Biden when he was running the first time, and then the second time that oh
Yeah.
you're gonna make me vote for Joe Biden again. Yes, if he's the nominee, we vote for him because first things first, we got to fix the damage that was done by Donald Trump and this Republican administration. Then work for getting your better candidate and moving farther left if that's what you want. But focus on the first thing first. Don't we can't have the end goal of this ideal society 20 years from now that you want being the thing that's getting in the way right now.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this before. If you've got Donald Trump and, say, Kamala, and Kamala doesn't give you everything you want, and then you say, "I'm not voting for Kamala, I'll vote for Donald Trump." Here's the problem. If you vote for Kamala, you may not get everything you want, you whiny little fucking punk ass bitch. You don't get everything you want at first, but at least with Kamala, you're on the path to eventually get what you want once we get out of this cesspool of shit that Donald Trump put us into. Eventually, we'll get there. If you vote for Donald Trump and keep him in power, you'll never, ever, ever get what you want. And I want to say this about Gavin Newsom. Everybody's ready to crown him as the Democratic nominee. It's a long time away. It's a little presumptuous at this point. I'm not saying he's not doing the right things to uh, be the uh, be the choice for people right now, but a lot of things will happen over the next 3 years, including the midterms. That can change perceptions. That can change a lot of things. What if Donald Trump keels over tomorrow, choking on a Big Mac, and he's out of the picture? Then what Gavin Newsom is doing isn't really as effective. Now we've got a change in the middle of the stream. So don't, I love what Gavin's doing. I don't know that he'd be a great president. He'd be a better president than Donald Trump. But anything we can do to tear down Donald Trump, I'm on fucking board all the way.
Exactly. And beyond that, like you said, the midterms are coming. Now, if Gavin Newsom is the only one who appears to be the Democratic frontrunner going into the midterms, you know Republicans are going to be trying to tie every candidate to Gavin Newsom and what he's doing.
Right.
And it's going to be a litmus test to see, does he overperform? Does he underperform? I've said that before when Kamala Harris said she wasn't making uh, a decision yet about 28, but she kind of said, well, she wanted to stay out of it for now. She was going to focus on the midterms and helping Democrats get elected. Anybody who's out front and being the face of the Democratic Party, Republicans are going to attack because that's all they have. They only have attack politics. Um, so they could end up smearing Gavin Newsom for the next 2 years, get past 26, continue to smear him, and somebody else comes out as the front runner for 28 that we didn't see coming. And that's entirely possible. And if that's Gavin Newsom's role to play, and he's okay playing that role, let him. Let him take the heat for now. Let's just enjoy the fact that he's tearing down Donald Trump. He's sending Republicans into a tizzy because they're upset about how he's tweeting and how he's talking and this and that. Let him do that right now. We'll worry about 28 when we get to about 27 after the midterms. Focus on winning the midterms and putting some roadblocks in against Donald Trump.
But here's the thing. We know that when we're dealing with bullies, and that's who the Trump-fucks and Donald Trump are, they're good about hitting soft targets and rolling over the top of them. But when it comes to people that push back, they're cowards. And as I was saying, Donald Trump is known to go after anybody that goes after him, and he goes after them harder. Nobody's going after Donald Trump harder than Gavin Newsom at this point. But have you heard Donald Trump say one thing specifically about Gavin Newsom? And you haven't. Because he knows if he gets in there, Gavin Newsom will destroy him, if they're in a little debate, whether it be Twitter or wherever it is. So my point is that Democrats should take notice of this. Gavin Newsom is doing what you do to handle a bully. Instead of saying, oh my God, Donald Trump's going to do this, I'm fearful, and then lose by default because Donald Trump uh, played you, be the bully fighting the bully. And then they tend to run against you. The Democrat run away from you. The Democrats should take notice of this. All you motherfuckers that, and Republicans too, all you motherfuckers that are afraid of what Donald Trump will do to you, watch what Gavin Newsom's doing. He's an aggressor. He's assertive. He's on the offense. And Donald Trump ain't doing shit. So I'm hoping that there's some Democrats, maybe even some Republicans that say, hey, that works. I should try that. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. It is working. And like I said, if he's out here doing it and he's keeping Donald Trump on his heels, great.
Uh,
Um, now we got to focus on getting through to the midterms. If Republicans take this strategy up and start bucking Donald Trump, they might, and they may. I keep saying it when they get to that point when they think their political capital or their reelection chances are better without him. Donald Trump has very limited political capital left.
right,
And if he loses the House in the midterms, and if he loses the Senate, because that race is starting to become uh, hotter and hotter with like Sherrod Brown entering the race in Ohio,
right.
that's a seat in jeopardy. You have Joni Ernst here in Iowa who hasn't said yet whether or not she's gonna run. She originally said when she got elected she was only going to serve 2 terms. That is up. Uh, she's up for reelection. That would be the end of her 2 terms. And she's had some major gaffes here recently that she's getting buried for in the media. There are going to be some races that are up for grabs. If he loses all of Congress, Republicans are going to be going, this guy's a loser. He can't win in 28. We got to get behind somebody who can win us in 28.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm surprised they don't get on board earlier than this because uh, if they lose the House and the Senate in 2026, too fucking late. It's 2 years of hell for Donald Trump and the Republicans, assuming Donald Trump is still a factor.
Yeah, you're right. But they're still thinking that Donald Trump has enough political capital left to carry them through 26 and keep them in power. They haven't hit that realization, I don't think, yet, that being connected to Donald Trump will cost them the midterms. I've talked about that before. They only care about their own reelection chances. That's why you see some pushback. You got your Marjorie Taylor Greens that are pushing back a little bit. Other members of Congress are saying, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't redistrict Texas because California is going to redistrict and I'll lose my seat, etc. They're only worried about keeping themselves in power, and they have not had that aha moment yet where it's clicked that Donald Trump is going to sink them in the midterms.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if they don't realize it yet, they're fucking delusional or stupid because anybody can see what's going on here. The economy's going to shit, the deportations, the Jeffrey Epstein files, all this bullshit. There is nothing going their way. I know we were surprised on November 5th. That was a little different situation. They didn't remember what Donald Trump did, and now they're living through 2 years of what Donald Trump is doing, and they aren't really fucking liking it. I mean, we heard the recent story that Nebraska is pretty much bankrupt at this point. They had a $2 billion contract with China for soybeans, gone. All the people that came in and worked in the farms, they're gone. All the taxes that would have been collected from those immigrants and from those deals, gone. We're talking like $2.5 billion. And that's a lot of money for a state like Nebraska. And they are fucking scrambling. We understand that they went to the Trump administration and please help us out with 500 billion or $1 million or whatever it is, $500 million just to get us through. And I said, I'm all for helping people, but God damn it, that sounds like socialism. That sounds like welfare. We can't bring ourselves to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise these red states, and this is coming from somebody who is in a right now a red state, which it should be purple if you ask me. But we got a little stupid here in Iowa. But anyway, these red states, they're taker states anyway. They're always on the government dime. And then when things go bad, they're asking for even bigger handouts, but they're always against people getting handouts. It's ridiculous. They're reaping what they sowed in the fact that Donald Trump's tariffs have fucked over the economy. It's hurting here in Iowa too, from a little bit I'm hearing from local farmers. Uh, I don't hear a whole lot, but from what I am hearing, it's not, going any better here in Iowa. And that's what happened during Donald Trump's first term. You had soybeans rotting in the fields when Donald Trump fucked around with tariffs, and China said, hey, we're not going to do that. We're not going to buy from you if you're going to keep doing this dumb shit. And come around, he gets elected again. We're right back where we started. And now you have states like Nebraska saying we can't even make our budget and our obligations because now all this that we were depending on is gone. This is what happens when you elect a dumb fuck to run the country who doesn't know anything and starts dismantling things without understanding how they're all working, like USAID. All that food that they were giving out all over the world was being bought from American farmers. And now Nebraska's feeling the effects when they don't have anywhere to sell their grain.
Nebraska is only the first domino. Like you said, Iowa's in the same situation as Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, all these red states that are in the same situation. And they're going to be on their bended knee begging for money. And people will say, well, they're red states, so Donald Trump will give them the money to save them. And I don't know that that's true. Donald Trump doesn't give anything out unless he's getting something back. And frankly, Nebraska and Iowa don't have anything to give him.
Right. I mean, look what happened with different red states that needed FEMA money. How
Yeah.
he sat on his hands until until he could make it look like the hero and he could get the win by saving them. Now, maybe that's why he would bail out these red states. What he would get in return is a supposed win and some popular headlines to get away from things like how bad his tariffs are doing, how bad the economy's doing, how bad the Epstein files and all of that. And maybe that's why he would do it. But he's not doing it because of the red states. He's not doing it because he likes Republicans. He's only going to do it because it benefits himself.
Well, the thing that people have to remember, if say Nebraska needs 500 million for whatever they need it for, say the federal government gives Nebraska the $500 million. That's to keep the state afloat. That doesn't take all these farms that went into bankruptcy out of bankruptcy. They're done. They're over. They're gone. Nothing Donald Trump's going to do is going to save them. It's already done. So, as much as the state may survive, all those people that were kicked out of their farms by the Trump administration and Republicans in general, they're still going to be feeling the pain and they're still going to be very fucking angry.
Oh yeah, I've talked about it before. Depending on how bad Donald Trump fucks this economy, and he likes to make comparisons to the Great Depression in 1930s America. He's causing a second version of that himself. And if he does, depending on the Democratic response, they could be in power for 20 plus years. But you could end up having a whole generation, even two generations of people who have gotten completely fucked by this administration. Like you said, they lost the family farm. It's now in bankruptcy. And they may have to sell their land dirt cheap to a foreign investor or whatever. They may never vote Republican ever again if they connect the dots and realize that it's Republicans fucking them over.
I don't know how you don't connect the dots. Donald Trump is president, Republicans have the majorities. But I know there are some out there saying, I'd still vote for Donald Trump. Well, then in that case, if you're going to suffer, if your family's going to suffer and you're going to lose your property, you fucking deserve it.
Exactly. I mean, you can only teach these people so much. We told them exactly what would happen. We said tariffs are going to fuck over the economy. We mentioned how many times did we say we pay the tariffs? And guess what? Comes out, tariffs go up, prices go up, we're paying it. Um, he cut off USAID, and now suddenly farmers can't, sell their grain. We said he's going to do that. It's going to hurt his immigration policies. There's not going to be people to pick crops. We said that going into the election, and all we got from people on the right was, "You're just fear mongering. You don't like Donald Trump. You're just making it up. It's not going to be that bad." And now it's happening just like we said, and somehow we're still the bad guys.
Yeah. These Trump-lefucks that still support Donald Trump remind me of a story that goes a lot different than I'm going to tell it here. But it's like a little kid who's getting ready to touch the stove. And mom said, don't touch the stove. You're going to get hot. You're going to get burnt. You're going to get burnt. And the kid touches it and he gets burnt and he cries and mom has to take care of him. And then 20 minutes later, he goes, I want to touch the stove again. You've already been fucking burned. You've already been injured, and you're not smart enough to not do it again. And that's the sense I get with a lot of these Trump-lefucks. It's either that they just cannot admit they're wrong, or they're so sucked into the cult that they just don't even see it.
Yeah, a lot of them don't see it. And when Donald Trump comes out and says, "Well, it's Joe Biden's economy. He's the reason why all this is so bad. My policies haven't fixed it yet." They go, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But if he would have left the economy alone and it was still rocking under what Joe Biden was doing and everything was going good like he did during his first term, he'd turn around and he'd say, 'My economy, things are great.'" And they go, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." They don't see the parallel there. They don't want to see it because they're convinced their guy is something amazing because they haven't had that charismatic uh, leader yet for a long time. The last big charismatic Republican was Reagan.
Right.
George H.W. Bush, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. His son, not much better. And look at some of the other people that ran here and there in between. They didn't have that guy that could, carry a crowd like Donald Trump, who could work a crowd. And they've tied everything to him because they know a lot of them don't realize that their policies are the reason why they can't carry a crowd.
Right. Well, there's nobody to replace him either. I mean, everybody says, well, if Donald Trump goes down, J.D. Vance or somebody else will replace him and it'll be just as bad. And I don't believe that, because you need somebody who's kind of a lightning rod for MAGA to keep them incensed like they are. And there's nobody that can do it. I don't even know that MAGA likes J.D. Vance because he's such a wuss. Um, if we can cut the head off the snake, we can at least improve things a little bit. We're still going to deal with bullshit from Republicans, but it'll be a lot better without Donald Trump making the fucking noise he makes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they don't like JD Vance. Uh, JD Vance clearly wasn't Donald Trump's pick to be vice president. And it wouldn't have been any better if they could have kept Mike Pence. They didn't like Mike Pence much either.
No.
They don't have that firebrand, that guy who can carry a crowd. JD Vance may have the same policies as Donald Trump. He doesn't have the same personality.
Or
And it
power.
doesn't matter if they try, yeah, if they try to run Eric Trump or Don Jr., they don't have the same way with a crowd that their dad does. Just
No.
because they got the name, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was a once in a generation type, charismatic, work a crowd type person. And uh, they don't have anybody like that to replace him. And MAGA wants that. They want that spectacle because they don't want to deal with the nuance of the policies and get into the weeds of any of it. They want somebody that says, "Well, see, I did this. I fixed everything," and it makes them feel good, so they think everything is going to be better.
They want to own the libtards. That's really the only thing they care about.
That
And
too.
unfortunately, the country and the government suffers by taking that attitude. And we're seeing it now. You were talking about Trump, and we got to talk about the whole situation with Russia and Ukraine. We know that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin got together last week. Donald Trump had high hopes for ceasefire and all kinds of stuff. And of course, it was an absolute dud. It was a nothing burger. Nothing happened there. And Donald Trump started to get pretty well harassed by the media. He did nothing. Fox News even said he got steamrolled. So he had to come up with something quick to redeem himself, at least in his mind. So then he invites Zelensky over. And Zelensky agrees to come over, which I thought was weird at first because he basically got ambushed and rolled last time he was here with Donald Trump. But but Zelensky had something up his sleeve. I'm going to bring a bunch of people from NATO and the EU, and they're going to back me up. My gang is going to come up against Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is saying, well, yeah, we invited him. No, you didn't, motherfuckers. You don't do business that way. So these people all showed up and they played nicey nice out before the meetings. But it's going to be interesting to see what, if anything, comes out of it. And as far as I'm concerned, the way Donald Trump is, there's not going to be a ceasefire anytime soon.
There probably won't be. Now, a couple things did come out of that meeting. Supposedly, now we don't have the final details as of recording this. We're still a week or two away, and we know how Donald Trump is with a week or two timeline. That never seems to pan out. But
Right.
supposedly, Zelensky has agreed in principle to like a 90 or $100 billion security deal where they buy with NATO backing or European backing. Like 90 or $100 billion worth of equipment from us to help them defend themselves. Uh, Beyond that, there's something about Ukraine being able to start producing drones, and we would buy some of them from Ukraine, I'm guessing at a deeply reduced rate, um, which is something that sounds like something Donald Trump would do. We got something you want, we'll buy something from you that helps us, but we got to have that good discount. Um, So it looks like he may come up with something. And apparently, there's also going to be in a couple of weeks a big sit down meeting between Putin, Zelensky, and Donald Trump. We'll see if it leads to a ceasefire or a peace deal. I don't think it will, but Donald Trump's pushing for it because he wants so desperately to get that Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, but I just don't see it happening because, he's speaking for Vladimir Putin, then he's speaking for Zelensky, and he's not hitting on either one of them. I'll give you an example. You heard out of Witkoff and Donald Trump that Russia would agree with some Article 5 protections, Article 5 like protections for Ukraine. Russia comes out today and says, "Yeah, no, we're not agreeing to that. We don't want any European military in Ukraine." Then the thing is, Donald Trump let the cat out of the bag before the meeting with EU and Zelensky, saying, "Well, basically, uh, Zelensky could end this war today. All he has to do is give up 20% of his country and vow that he'll um, never join NATO, or that he can't join NATO." There is no way that Zelensky is going to agree to giving away 20% of his land. It's just not going to fucking happen. And Vladimir Putin's not going to move off this. I mean, people suggested that Putin is in a similar situation to Benjamin Netanyahu. Peace isn't their friend. Peace might put them in a situation where they're run out of their positions and put in jail because they're both war criminals.
Yeah, you're entirely right. Zelensky's not going to give up that land, and he shouldn't have to. And legally, from what he is saying, now I have not read the Ukrainian constitution. I'm going off of Zelensky's words, but Zelensky says it's in their constitution that he can't just agree to give up his territory, no matter what the cost. So
Yeah.
they have to keep fighting. And now, is Putin trying to stay in power? Probably. I don't know what the climate is necessarily within Russia by itself, but I know there was a big movement here not that long ago. What was it? Navalny, I think was the guy's name, who was like his best opposition. And
Yeah.
suddenly he ends up, taking a header off a balcony. I think it
Yeah.
was, or what, or was he, or did he end
Well,
up in a Siberian gulag and something happened to him there? Either way, he ended up not being around. Putin is, he's not as strong as he thinks. He looks relatively weak in this Ukrainian war. They should have, by rights, by as strong as we thought Ukraine was and Russia was going into this conflict, Russia should have steamrolled them in about 3 days. Here we
should
are, three and a
have.
half years later, and they're constantly being embarrassed.
But Russia is a lot like Donald Trump, a lot of bluster, and people believe, oh, he's powerful, he's smart, he's strong, he's rich. We thought Russia had one of the most powerful ground forces in the world. We've now since discovered that that's not true, not even close to true. And in this war, Vladimir Putin has lost 1 million troops in this thing. So he's not doing well. He can't be too popular in Russia with all those mothers that are without their sons and daughters. And on top of it, the economy in Russia is absolutely horrible. People can't buy food. People can't do shit. It can't be a very stable situation in Russia at this point.
I doubted it. I really doubt that it is very stable over there, but we'll never hear fully how bad it is because they won't let that kind of information out of Russia.
No.
Vladimir Putin is a lot like Donald Trump. He doesn't like the media that reports things as being true. He wants to control the narrative. And that's in part where Donald Trump gets that idea from. He gets a lot of ideas from Putin, but not all of them are feasible here in the United States.
I'm going to go give you an Ed vibe here because this is something, well, I knew this, but I learned the specifics today. Republicans will say, why should we support Ukraine in their fight against Russia? That's not our responsibility. And the fact is, it is our responsibility. People don't recall in 1994, we had something like the Budapest Accord or something like that. And if you remember,
Mhm.
Russia, or the Soviet Union had to break apart because it broke apart. So Poland went on their own and Ukraine went on their own. But here's the thing about Ukraine. When they separated, there was a bunch of Russian or Soviet nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And Ukraine's going, cool, we got nuclear weapons. And then America, Bill Clinton, and whoever was in Russia at the time went to him and said, "Hey, listen, dude, you got to give up those nuclear weapons. You got to get rid of the nuclear weapons. Here's the deal: if you give up the nuclear weapons, we, America and Russia, will always protect you. We'll always take care of you." So they gave up the nuclear weapons. Believe it or not, they were sent to Russia, and they were to be protected by Russia and the United States. So now 30, 31 years later, Russia attacks Ukraine, and America just lets them do it. So they want to get some kind of agreement now, but here's the problem: Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, none of them stand by any deals they sign. They always violate every deal. I mean, right now, Donald Trump, by putting tariffs in Canada and Mexico, is violating the trade deal he cut with those two countries in his first fucking term. So how can you negotiate with somebody if you can't trust them to stick to it?
Exactly. Now, I think we did a pretty good job under Biden for supplying Ukraine. Could we
Yeah,
have done more to defend them and maybe gone in? Possibly, and that's an argument for another day. But Donald Trump doesn't even want to do that much, which again just shows how little Donald Trump knows that if we buy weapons and send them to Ukraine to help in their conflict, guess what? You're buying them from American manufacturers. You're putting people to work on the factory line, on the factory floor, which is driving up the economy. You're creating jobs,
right.
and you're growing the economy. But Donald Trump doesn't think like that. He just wants to, bow down to Putin and try to be Putin's friend because he thinks Putin is this strong leader, and that's what he likes. He likes the strong, tough guy, the bullies, and he's trying to be just like another one.
What's surprising to me is Donald Trump is unaware of the optics he gave when Vladimir Putin came to town. Vladimir Putin hadn't been in the United States for 10 years. Vladimir Putin is a convicted war criminal. There are 123 countries that if he showed up there, he would be arrested and fucking jailed. That would have happened. Now, we in America don't subscribe to the ICC, the international courts, and stuff like that. So he was safe here. But here's a guy who's a murderous dictator. He attacked a sovereign nation unprovoked. He's killing hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians and is responsible for the death of 1 million of his own people. And Donald Trump rolls out a red carpet for this motherfucker, hugs him and smiles and laughs and has a nice little conversation. That's not something we do in America or didn't do in America at some point. We started to do it with the Donald Trump being involved, but those were very bad optics. And Donald Trump kept saying, "I'm going to get a ceasefire." There was no way that Vladimir Putin was ever going to commit to a ceasefire. And Donald Trump did nothing more on that day than embarrass this country and lose us a lot of credibility with other nations around the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, as far as us not subscribing to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, if it had been any president besides Donald Trump,
Yeah.
Putin probably wouldn't have shown up here because he would have feared getting arrested. Without some kind of guarantees that we weren't going to turn him over, with any other president besides Trump, he wouldn't have risked it. But he knew Donald Trump wouldn't do that to him, so he felt safe. And he was invited. And like you said, they literally rolled out the red carpet. It was embarrassing. And then you have Donald Trump trying to walk down the red carpet, and he looks like he's 3 sheets to the wind as he's zigzagging down the red carpet. And we're supposed to take him seriously as this tough, strong leader.
Yeah, I was talking to C Temptation yesterday, and we were talking about how he was zigzagging down the red carpet. And I suggested that maybe the load in his diaper shifted like a semi truck, and he just started going one side and then it went to the other side. Um, yeah, Donnie doesn't look good physically, certainly not mentally. He's not articulate at all. He just goes off on tangents. And when he doesn't think of what he can say, he reverts back to 2020. It's really kind of embarrassing to watch him. I find it hard to watch him because I know he's going to embarrass himself, which I don't mind. But in the process, he's embarrassing all of us uh, quite a bit. And I know that there are people all around the world watching this and laughing their fucking asses off, and justifiably so.
Yeah, he's embarrassing to watch. I think the zigzag could have been in part because of cognitive issues.
Yeah.
It when you have cognitive dementia issues, walking in a straight line, standing vertical, he stands with a very noticeable tilt. Um, and that was even going back toward the end of his first term. That was starting, people were starting to notice. It's only gotten worse, and now he's zigzagging and bobbing and weaving. He can't form a coherent thought. He thinks he's weaving like eight things together to make one coherent point, and none of it makes sense. Then what was it? Sunday he posts just the word Bella on Truth Social, and everyone's trying to think he means something amazing by it. I think he either fell asleep mid post
Yeah.
or he was trying to post something bigger, forgot about it, then forgot he even posted it. Because you notice the White House isn't clarifying anything about that. They're just trying to ignore it like it never happened. He is not in good shape. The stress is getting to him, and it's only going to continue to get worse. If this guy wasn't president of the United States and he was just an average citizen, you would be begging his family to find him an assisted living facility or something, a care facility, because you'd be worried about his health.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that what Donald Trump did is he handed everything that Vladimir Putin wanted on a silver platter. Vladimir Putin wanted the photo op that gave him some credibility internationally, which he's lost. He wanted to go in and talk to Donald Trump and basically play with Donald Trump like a kitten with a ball of yarn. He just, and then Donald Trump just falls for it every time. I heard stories that when they were coming off the plane, one of his aides, Lavrov, who's also is a Russian spy. You might remember he found himself in the Oval Office shortly after he was elected and inaugurated in his first term. Spies right in the fucking Oval Office. And Lavrov is essentially a spy, but he's wearing a sweatshirt that says CCCP on it, or meaning Soviet Union in Russian. And did you hear this? You know what they had coming over for dinner on the plane from Russia to Alaska? You know what they had?
What?
Chicken Kiev. Chicken Kiev. Isn't that funny? Isn't that fucking hysterical? I mean, these people know they're playing with Donald Trump. They know they're making fun of him. They're doing it purposely. And Donald Trump just does not fucking get it.
No. And the sad part is, if you go back and watch clips of Donald Trump from like the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, he was a lot smarter then.
Oh,
He
yeah.
probably wouldn't have been played like he is now. He wouldn't be off on these weird tangents. You can see the very evident decline from then to now. And he was an entirely a different person, but a lot of people cannot differentiate the two. They think they're still getting that older version of Donald Trump that we're just not getting. You're right. Russia was playing Donald Trump from the get-go, and they're going to continue to do it until somebody around him is able to explain to Donald Trump what exactly is going on. But that is easier said than done.
You know, when they were meeting on TV with all the EU folks and the NATO folks, they were all playing nice. Oh, thank you, Mr. President. And they were basically doing that so they didn't get put back in a situation where he basically ambushed Zelensky. They were just placating him just to get through this thing. But I would be interested to hear, and I'm wondering if we will hear what happened in the meeting behind closed doors, because Donald Trump's got to be getting frustrated here. He went to Vladimir Putin, and Vladimir Putin didn't tell him what he wanted to hear. So then he started threatening Vladimir Putin. Prior to this meeting, he said, well, Zelensky's going to have to give up a bunch of land and not join NATO. But when he went in there, I got to think he got some pushback because prior to his meeting with Vladimir Putin, a lot of people in Europe were worried about this. So they got Donald Trump on the phone. A bunch of these EU leaders were on the phone with him. And after Donald Trump got done with it, they basically said, or he basically said, yeah, I didn't like that meeting. Because I'm sure behind closed doors, they're a little tougher on him. I mean, what more do they have to lose at this point? He's got tariffs going on all of them. What more is he going to do? Fucking attack them? So they're probably speaking up a little louder. And this is important to them because it could affect their own sovereignty down the road if they let Russia run roughshod. But I gotta feel like at this point, Donald Trump is seeing he's not going to get this deal done, and there's got to be a certain amount of frustration in him because he just wants things to work his way, and it's not going to.
Yeah, well, I know he's frustrated, and you're right. They are pushing back against him, in part because they know better than a lot of people in our own country that Donald Trump is ineligible to run for a third term, despite what he may say.
Yeah,
So they don't have any reason to fear Donald Trump after this. He can't run for reelection. And like you said, he's already fucking them over with the tariffs and he's already doing this and doing that, short of military intervention on our part, which may be enough for the Republicans to walk away from him.
yeah, you
Um,
would hope so.
what else do they have to fear? They have been, ever since he got elected, they have been trying to find ways of shoring themselves up and move forward without the United States. They're preparing for the worst case scenario. And I think they're going to be more prepared than we would expect. And Donald Trump doesn't realize it. He just thinks that he's the most brilliant person that's ever lived. He's the smartest person in the room, and they should just give him whatever he wants. And that's just not the case. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road he just says, well, I had the meeting with Putin. I had the meeting with Zelensky separately. We had a meeting together. They won't come to terms. So it's all on them. They got to figure it out. And he tries to wash his hands of the whole mess.
Well, that's kind of what he did with Israel and Hamas, and then he gets back into it when he thinks he might get some publicity out of it. But um, yeah, they're not even close in terms of the negotiation because they haven't even talked with one another. I mean, he said that he's working on a trilateral meeting with Putin and Zelensky. But Putin, in this first meeting, specifically said, I don't want him there. And I'll guarantee you he won't want to be in the same room with Zelensky because Zelensky's not stupid. Donald Trump's stupid and he can feel comfortable there, but Zelensky's not stupid and he's not going to like to negotiate with him. This is the weird thing about America at this point. Everything that's going on in this deal, it's like, well, we got to get Putin's approval of this. Why? The motherfucker invaded a sovereign country unprovoked. He is a war criminal. Why are we bending the knee to him and talking to him about what he thinks? Fuck it. Just do it.
Well, I mean, you do kind of have to get Putin's agreement to any sort of a ceasefire deal, etc. But the fact is, you know, a stronger president would be going to Putin with, "Hey, these are the terms. Oh, here are our terms. You need to accept them, or else." Not Donald Trump weekly going, "Oh, please, Mr. Putin, please give me this ceasefire. We'll just agree to anything just so we can get a ceasefire done. Pretty
Well,
please."
see, and
Come
see, that's
on,
it.
it's
That's
weak.
what Donald Trump wants the easy win. So that's why he's going to Zelensky and say, well, just agree with whatever he says and we'll cut the deal and it'll be peace. He doesn't care about Ukraine or Russia. He cares about looking like he's the hero and he got peace in this
Hmm.
situation. But no one's going to agree to that. No one's going to agree to those details because Zelensky's not giving up land and Putin isn't backing off from wanting land. Uh, Putin ultimately wants full control over Ukraine and then whatever next country is in line. That's what Europe is so worried about, that he's going to keep going. We had this situation back in World War II, this famous story of Neville Chamberlain from the UK, and Hitler was going through and taking stuff, and Chamberlain said, "Well, tell you what, we'll let you take this, and then we'll be done, okay? And then of course Hitler said, "Yeah, that sounds good to me." And then of course he ran roughshod and continued to try to do it. You can't trust Putin. You can't trust Trump. This thing needs to be resolved, but there's only one way to resolve this with a bully like Putin, and that's by force. That's the only way you can get him to capitulate one way or another. He's not going to do it in a negotiation with a dumbass like Donald Trump. There's an easy answer to this. There's $300 billion of Russian assets that are frozen by the United States. You you release all that stuff and give it to um, uh, Ukraine to buy as many weapons as possible, and then America gives them weapons to deal with, and the EU gives them weapons to deal with. The only way this gets resolved is if Russia gets vanquished in this situation. I mean, the only way it gets resolved in a decent way. I mean, they could overrun Ukraine and beat them, but they've got to push back. We've got to help them push back, and that's the only way to win this motherfucker.
Exactly. I mean, uh, we need to give them more arms, give them the resources they need. But beyond that, like I said earlier, Europe's trying to figure out a way to do it without American support. If that
Yeah.
means they have to just do it by they pool their resources and buy from us, fine. They're going to figure out a way to do it. But if we give them that money that we have of Russia's that has been frozen,
For
that'd be a good
years.
start. That'd be a great start to help Ukraine out. And the last thing Russia wants is for anything to happen with any of the NATO nations. He does not want Article 5 invoked at all. He
No.
is, I guarantee you, Vladimir Putin is terrified of Article 5 getting invoked. And that would be in the NATO charter, Article 5 is an attack against one is an attack against all. So he would be in a major war against all of Europe and the United States if Donald Trump was, a strong enough leader to actually enforce that treaty.
Right.
But uh, Putin doesn't want to run the risk of going up against that large force. That's the whole reason it exists, is a mutual defense agreement so that you don't have somebody do what Germany tried to do in the 30s and just take over one country after another and watch them all fall like dominoes as they don't have the resources to defend themselves.
You know,
Um,
the thing that bothers me about this whole thing, the incompetence of Donald Trump and his special envoy, Witkoff, they come out and say, well, yeah, Putin has agreed to some kind of land swap. Don't even know what that means. That wouldn't make sense. But he says, yeah, he agreed to it. Then he had to admit he lied about that. Then they come out and say, well, he would be okay with some Article 5 like situation for Ukraine. But then Russia comes out and said, nah, we never said that. We got motherfuckers going in talking to Vladimir Putin, coming out and lying about what is said. And that's dangerous in its own right. That doesn't help the negotiations at all.
no, no, it doesn't. And I mean, if I was Russia and you have one side just making shit up on the fly to make their leader look good, who's not even directly involved in the conflict, why would I want to give too much? Um, I you got to think Russia's looking for a way to embarrass Donald Trump and the Trump administration beyond just saying, "Hey, we didn't actually agree to that." Um, yeah, these negotiations they need to be done, but Donald Trump and this administration are not the people to be doing them because they're so incompetent.
Well, yeah, there's not gonna, it's not gonna get done. There's not gonna be any ceasefire. In fact, we're recording this on Tuesday night, so I don't know. Somebody made a point that you had this get together with the EU and NATO and stuff with Donald Trump, and somebody said, "What do you think is going to happen tonight?" No doubt, Russia's going to go in and bomb more shit in Ukraine. Every time Donald Trump talks to Vladimir Putin or does something like what they did today, Vladimir Putin basically flips off Donald Trump's and bombs some more places. So either Donald Trump is complicit with that or he's going to get mad at Vladimir Putin. And I don't think Vladimir Putin cares either way because I don't think he's afraid of Donald Trump in any sense.
No, I don't think Putin's afraid of Donald Trump in the slightest. And that's the last thing he cares about is whether or not he pisses off Trump. Did you also see the thing with this meeting with in Ukraine where they asked Zelensky, one of the reporters did, about whether he would hold elections? And
Yeah.
Zelensky's like, yeah, as long as the polling places are safe and secure. And you could almost see the gears turning in Donald Trump's head. And he goes, wait a minute, you mean if there's a war, there's no elections? So if 3.5 years, if we're in a war, I don't have to leave. He said that out loud.
Yeah. Which is stupid.
And it's stupid because we don't have that mechanism built into our Constitution. And we have always held elections through wars. We did it during the Civil War. We did it during both world wars, Vietnam, Korea.
Korea.
It doesn't change anything. The fact is, we will hold an election in November uh, of 2028, and come January 20th of 2029, Donald Trump's going to be out of the White House. Now, does it mean he's going to try to do something to stay in power, or is he already thinking about how he can get into a war to try to use that? Maybe, but he's too stupid to actually pull it off in any meaningful way. And that's even if he is healthy enough and or breathing at that point to even consider still being president.
And the thing about it is this is what he does all the time. He says something like that out loud, acting as if he's joking, but we know he's not joking. He's testing the waters. He thinks he found a loophole because that's what he does with his whole life, loopholes to get around court cases and all that sort of shit. Um, I'll guarantee you, he's told somebody, go look into that and see if we can do that. Well, Donnie, you're not going to be alive in 2028. I'm convinced of that. You're either not going to be in live or you're going to be booted out of Washington, D.C. No way he lasts 3 more years. It just doesn't make any sense. With what's going on now after 7 months, it's going to get worse and people are going to get tired of the shit.
Yeah, I'm convinced that, and I know there's going to be people in the comments that are saying I'm too hopeful that there's good Republicans out there. But I think what might actually happen is come the midterms, when Donnie loses the House and maybe the Senate, that between then and the new Congress taking over, that Republicans might say, "Fuck this guy. He just cost us the House and the Senate, and he's fucking our chances for 2028." That they may vote to remove him themselves at that point. And once they start the ball rolling, if they do, Democrats just have to jump on board. But if it gets started by Republicans, you know it's going to go through because uh, they'll have the numbers at that point. They wouldn't start it if they knew they weren't going to succeed.
Now, what you just said there, that people come in the comments and saying that you're too hopeful that there are decent Republicans. I will say this. At this moment in time, there are no decent Republicans. Either they are in line with MAGA or they've bent the knee or supported MAGA. And whether you're a sexual assaulter or somebody who supports a sexual assaulter, you're equally guilty. But you're right about that. When he becomes a liability in their minds, he's already a liability. They just don't grasp it yet. But once they realize, especially after the midterms, when they maybe lose the House and the Senate, they are going to be tired of the bullshit. It's a losing cause, and they will get rid of them. I mean, that's how politics is. And I'm not talking about MAGA. MAGA will probably follow him till the depths of darkness. But the real politicians that are more transactional, they're not going to want to be anywhere near Donald Trump if he continues to lose.
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying that they're decent Republic. Like when I say that they're going to decide to do something because it's costing them, it's not that I'm saying they're going to see the light or they're going to be that they're good Republicans by any means. They're transactional. They're looking out for their own interests and their own power, and they know Donald Trump's time is up. His political capital will have been spent. The last of it will have cost them the House and maybe the Senate,
Yeah.
and they're going to say, okay, we need to do something to gear up toward 28 and make sure we have a successor to stay in power. So maybe we can get the House and the Senate back, and get the presidency, or at least get one of the two, so we can stop a Democratic president from doing a bunch of shit we don't like. it's all transactional. It's not that they're necessarily good or that they've seen the light, but they're worried about their own power. And they know that with as bad as things can get under Donald Trump, I keep saying it, that it could be like 1930s after Hoover fucked the economy with the Great Depression. And they used tariffs to screw it up even worse back then. You had Democrats in charge for 20 years of all three branches, basically, and they think they held Congress for 50.
Yeah. Well, uh, what you're talking about can be validated with history. If you weren't around when Watergate happened, what you need to know is that Nixon did far less than Donald Trump ever did. And when it came down to either impeaching Richard Nixon or forcing him to resign, it wasn't the Democrats who did it, it was the Republicans. The Republicans saw he was a liability, that he was going to be a problem for the Republican Party. And they walked into his Oval Office and said, listen, if you stick around, you're going to get impeached. So you better resign. And he did. They cut a deal where he'd get a pardon and everything was cool. But regardless of what you think of Republicans, they're going to do what's in their best interest. And at some point in the not too distant future, the best interest to them would be separating from Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a fucking anchor falling to the bottom of the ocean.
Exactly. And, you know, they are going to have to make that choice, but they may not be willing to accept it until after the midterm elections blow up in their face. And I
They
do think
might,
there's
yeah.
a good chance Democrats take the House by 30, 40 seats.
Right.
Um, really easy. And that's before you add in any of the redistricting bullshit that might go on around the country. Um, and that could add to even more seats, as I've talked about before on the podcast here. When you start narrowing out your majorities to make it so that like you gerrymander out 5 seats in Texas, right?
Right.
And now you got your Republican majority thinning out to other areas. If they don't like that or they're pissed off about it, some of these Republicans or the Republican leaning voter, they may vote Democrat just to stick it to you. And then you've gained nothing and you lose even more seats. Or you could end up bringing out Democratic voters that normally would have been silent before because now they see a real chance of maybe flipping that district. Again, this could blow up in their face. So it could be even bigger than 30 to 40 seats in the midterms in the House. And if they flip the Senate, the map isn't great for Democrats, but they need 4 seats. They need 4 pickups. And that is actually possible, I think, with this map.
Yeah. I mean, more and more people are saying that the Senate, there could be a path to winning the Senate. Now, can you imagine if the Democrats win the House? Donald Trump is going to be freaking out. If they win the House and the Senate, he is going to be going batshit crazy. It's going to upset him. He's going to talk about hoaxes. He's going to talk about they were cheating and all this stuff. That goes without saying. He's going to say it. But no matter what happens, no matter what happens, if the House wins, Donald Trump's last 2 years are an absolute waste. The House will do him no favors. They will just do investigations and hearings, and it will be absolute hell for Donald Trump. And if the Senate is with the Democrats too, he's fucking cooked. I don't know what he would do in that situation. I don't think he would resign because he's Donald Trump. Uh, but those last 2 years are going to be some wild motherfuckers if he's got no power in Congress.
Oh yeah, he's going to try to do everything he can to block anything that would come out of Congress. And the only things that would be coming out of Congress if Democrats have control, especially if they have control of both houses, would be restoring funding back to, pre-big beautiful bill levels. And Donald Trump isn't going to want to sign it. It's going to be chaos. We may have a long-term government shutdown because Donald Trump's a toddler who doesn't want to, get along if it's not his way or anything. Donald Trump will get nothing accomplished if Democrats get one of the two chambers of Congress. And he knows it. He's terrified of it. That's why he's trying to redistrict Texas and other Republican strongholds. That's why he's pushing against mail-in voting and voting machines now, trying to do all this bullshit to make. He's trying to sow doubt about the election so he can say, "See, I didn't lose. I didn't lose. It wasn't me. They stole it from me again. They stole it because he can't lose gracefully." Remember, he lost the Iowa caucuses in 2016. I believe it was Ted Cruz.
Right.
Soon as it was announced he lost, he started crying that it was rigged against him that Ted Cruz cheated and it was unfair. Donald Trump cannot accept a loss no matter how it looks. He's going to be
Yeah.
freaking out if Democrats get control of even one of the two chambers of Congress, let alone both.
Well, yeah, if they get control of the House of Representatives, it's a done deal that he gets impeached again. There's no question. And that may be the time, depending on what the Democrats have in the Senate, you need 60 votes or 62 votes or something like that.
67.
Um, 67 votes. Um, if the Democrats hold the Senate too, probably won't have 67 votes. But that, if they've got 55 votes, say, or 53 votes, uh, that may be the moment in time when the Republicans say, fuck it. We just need 8 people to vote against Donald Trump and he's gone and we're done with that motherfucker. So that's where the Republicans could step in too if the Democrats get that kind of power, because they would have already been done with him with the midterms. They've already lost a lot because of him in the midterms, and they will be looking for any excuse possible to get rid of them. If they could let the Democrats do it with just a few of the Republicans coming out, they may very well take that opportunity.
Yeah, you're right. They may make that movement, or like I said, they may do it on their own after the midterms, but before the new Congress takes over, even when they're in power, with people that are on their way out the door. If you
Yeah,
have eight Republicans that lost their
good
seats in the
point.
Senate, well, you don't need that many more to side with all the Democrats, and suddenly Donald Trump's gone. Same with the House. You'd only need three or four in the House to pass an impeachment resolution. And if they've all lost their seats, what would be the harm? Um, Now, would Donald Trump just say it's all rigged against him like he always does because they lost their seats and they're trying to blame him for the loss? Yeah. Would he be partially right? Actually, yes. But they would have other good enough reasons to get rid of him beyond just him costing them the seats that they would have to deal with then.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the redistricting thing, and we know we have what we have in Texas where they want to gerrymander the fuck out of the place, pick up 5 seats. Um, the Democrats took off out of town. They left them without a quorum, and they couldn't vote for anything, which pissed off the Republicans. They were going to arrest them and do all this stuff, which was bullshit. They were never going to do that sort of thing. But now that the special session ended, the Democrats have come back. But that doesn't mean it's over, because all governor the governor has to do is call another special session, and then it's likely to pass the gerrymandering bill. Or do you think that, I know Donald Trump wouldn't because Donald Trump's a dipshit. Do you think Texas and other Republicans are thinking twice about doing the gerrymandering in Texas this second time through, only because they know that Gavin Newsom is serious and some of these other states are serious? It'll be a big dick measuring contest. It'll be a pissing contest, but it's absolutely necessary that they fight fire with fire. Just to let them do it is fucking crazy.
Yeah, I think that they may second guess it. They may still try, but they may at least second guess it because right now, uh, Gavin Newsom's put out his new maps that said that would get rid of 5 seats in California that are Republican held and try to make them democratically held. Beyond that, that measure potentially could be going to the voters as early as November.
Right.
Well, they may, and because California is required, I believe, for the voters to pass new maps, Texas may try to back off until after the November, till after the special election. Um, that way, they don't have time to do it. They don't have time for that election, and they may try to wait it out and see if they can pull something off. But even that, any redistricting attempt is going to probably be held up in the courts. Um, it's just like you said, it's a big dick measuring contest. It's going to accomplish nothing. If anything, um, it could have cost them above and beyond the seats they were going to lose even more.
Yeah, and Donald Trump doesn't need to be in a dick measuring contest because he's basically coming in unarmed. You know, it's fucking the 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 idea that they would wait until after November so they could beat out California and California wouldn't do the vote. I think at this stage, and I hope Gavin Newsom is of this mindset too. They kept saying, "Well, if you do it, we'll do it." So now, if they waited till after November to undermine what Gavin Newsom is doing, I think Gavin Newsom should do it, whether they pass it or not, because that's part of the assertiveness we need now. You said you were going to do it. I don't care if you do it or not. We're doing it. We're going to slap you first, and then we're going to do it in each and every other state. We've got to be aggressive like that. They're bullies. They don't react to anything. They don't react to decency or negotiations. You got to fucking hit them. So I'm hoping Gavin Newsom puts it up for a vote in November, regardless of what happens.
I agree with that, but I also disagree with it. I like the sentiment. I like the idea of hitting them first and doing that. But where I can kind of disagree is if Gavin Newsom goes forward with it, regardless of what Texas does, it gives Texas an excuse now. Well, we're only doing it to offset what California is trying to do. And now suddenly they can try to flip the script and turn the narrative and maybe get people on board of what they're trying to do and somehow make Gavin Newsom in California out to be the bad guy. Now, those of us of a reasonable mind can see this for what it is and will know what the bullshit is. But there's at least a good segment of this country who'll go, well, that makes sense. Fuck California. Texas, I stand with you. You're doing the right thing.
You're talking about public opinion, but you're only talking about public opinion with those Republicans or Trump-lefucks. Um, the idea of doing what's fair and worried about what's going to be best and worried about this shit show that will ensue if everybody's doing the gerrymandering. But we've tried that for 10 years. We've tried to take the high road. We tried to do the smart or the logical thing, and it doesn't work. We're not in that kind of fight anymore. We're not in a political fight. It's a fight between right and wrong. And these people are bullies. So put it this way. Well, yeah, you're right. I was thinking Gavin Newsom wants to put it on the up for election in November. And then I'm thinking, well, what if Texas comes in after that election and just does it anyways? Then we're fucked. But as I understand it, at least in Texas, they only have till November to do this, and then it's too late for them to do it too. So maybe it times out all right that they can have the standoff until November, early November, and if they don't do anything, then Gavin Newsom doesn't do anything, and even if they wanted to, they don't have the time to get it done. Maybe that's the game that's being played here.
Well, I'm not entirely sure about what the time frame is, but I'm guessing is it has something to do with primary season, which would be coming up
Right,
after that
right,
election. I don't know when Texas's primary is, and I would think Iowa. I know midterms is different than presidential, but like when it comes time for the Iowa caucuses in uh, election years, they're held at like end of January, very first week of February.
right.
That's not a lot of time if you redistrict to get it done, to get people into their new districts, to run for primaries, et cetera. It would time out. So it would make sense that November is kind of a cutoff point.
Although there's another thing to consider, knowing Trump-lefucks, knowing Greg Abbott, no Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not going to want to back off this. They could come back tomorrow and say special session, get back in because the Democrats just came back today, and I'm hearing that they were trying to get approval from the Democrats to have people follow them around so they didn't take off at the last minute. So it would seem as though that they're going to try to do the special session. Whether it's a good idea or not doesn't seem to make a difference. It's double down, triple down, own the fucking libtards. I have a feeling they're going to do it anyway, whether they think they're going to lose or not. We've seen them do it over and over again with a lot of other things. So it wouldn't surprise me that they do it just to show how tough they are. And then Gavin Newsom, they're fucking around with the wrong guy. Gavin Newsom is very serious about doing this. When Gavin said, well, we'll just cancel it out with 5 seats, then Donald Trump said, well, then maybe we'll do 10. Well, you didn't even know if you can do 10. But I do know this. Gavin Newsom says, when we redistrict, we could do it for 10 seats, but we're only going to do it for 5 to counteract what Texas is doing. So Donald Trump wants to change it to 10. It's a little late to do that, but if they do that, Gavin Newsom isn't without some strength there.
Yeah, they said somebody said there's a way they could district California that there would be zero Republican representatives from California again. And they wouldn't be the only state to be like that. But it's possible. Then you have other states like New York, New Jersey, and Illinois all saying, hey, we could redistrict. I haven't heard about Minnesota. Somebody
I haven't
brought up
either.
Minnesota as a possibility, but I haven't seen anything official. Um, I mean, Democrats could end up, no, there's not enough Republican seats left in their states that aren't gerrymandered that can't contradict everything that Democrats could do in blue states that we could make it so that uh, nothing changes, right?
Right.
And there's just not enough places where they can go to the well and draw out more blue seats in red states. Like they were talking about doing Missouri. Missouri only has 8 seats. 6
Right.
are already Republican controlled. At
Right.
most, you gain 2 at most, and that's if it works. Um, Iowa, we have laws here that basically prevent gerrymandering. Iowa is pretty much drawn and quartered, basically, and that's
Right.
how our districts are for the most part. Um, Pretty fair. You can't do anything here, but they're all Republican anyway right now,
Right.
so doesn't matter. Um, Places like Illinois, they can't do anything in Illinois. It's democratically controlled. And once again, I want to remind people you'll see these maps of how dense some of the places like Illinois is, how you have all of the representatives all around the Chicago area. That's because that's where the people are.
Yeah,
Land doesn't
exactly.
vote. I live in a rural part of Iowa where, my whole county doesn't even have as many people as the city of Des Moines.
Right.
If you start adding in the metropolitan area, we just don't. Land doesn't vote at nearly the concentration because there's not the people. And people forget about that a lot when it comes to it. They see this big map of all this red area, but that's because there's no one there.
Right. Or not enough people there. Yeah, exactly. And
Exactly.
I think the Republicans use that to try to intimidate or at least hoodwink the people that support them. Oh, look at all the red out there. Yeah, but there's 4 people in that fucking red area, so it doesn't really matter. Um, it you mentioned something one time, and I want you to explain it again because I don't even know that I get it yet. Texas goes and gerrymanders and tries to get 5 more seats out of Texas. You've said before that somehow that can backfire. Can you explain that?
Yes. A couple reasons. One, okay, you take a district that was Donald Trump by 60% of the vote, right?
Right.
But now you're redrawing that map and taking 5% of that district out and putting them with other Trump supporters in another district to make that district more competitive. Now it's only Donald Trump plus 55%. Well, now Democrats could come out in force and vote in that district. potentially, if there's enough democratically leaning voters or independent voters that are, willing to vote Democrat, and say, hey,
Right.
there's a reasonable chance that Republican could get beat. That's a possibility. Two, you might move your representative from this one area to now he's representing a slightly different part of the state now. So you have somebody, this whole other area that they're used to having Billy Bob as their representative, and now they
Right.
go in and his name isn't on the ballot for their area. And they actually look at who's on the ballot and they go, oh, I really hate that guy. I don't care that he's a Republican. I'm going to vote for the Democrat. It's possible. It's never a guarantee, but these things change how elections happen. Look at what happened in the special election in Florida earlier this year for those two seats that were up for grabs. They were Trump, carried them by 60 to 65% of the vote. The Democrats, when they went to uh, run to fill those special election seats because there wasn't the name recognition, yeah, they still lost, but it was like 54 to 46%, not 65 to 35.
Right.
Changing that dynamic makes a big difference when you start taking out name recognition and now you've diluted your voting base. It can backfire against the Republicans. And you could have some people that are staunch Republicans who may just not vote because they're pissed at what their own party is doing because they see it for what it is, which is just them trying to fuck around and cheat.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something else. Donald Trump put out an executive order basically attempting to outlaw mail in ballots, which I found was interesting because I think Republicans benefit from mail in ballots too. This is just Donald Trump trying to say that he won in 2020. But first of all, it's not a law. It has to go through Congress. But even if it goes through Congress, it makes no sense because elections are run by states, not by the federal government. So they can't really dictate what the state does with their elections. If Minnesota wants to get mail in ballots, they're going to get mail in ballots, no matter what Donald Trump fucking says.
Right. The only there's very limited things that the federal government can do when it comes to federal elections. Um, and about the only thing they can do is they can set the election day. And that's about
Yeah.
it, the way I understand it. Now, I could be slightly wrong there, but states run their own elections. They determine their own rules for what times polls are open, what times they close, what do they accept for ballots? Do they use voting machines where you got like a touch screen and you got to pick your name and pull a lever? Is it like Florida back in the early 2000s where they had the machine with the punch and now you've got a hanging Chad? Do they have
Yeah.
just a piece of paper where you got to write the name down and drop it in a hat? States can decide how they want to run their own elections. They determine what voting machines, if they use them, get used. There's
Right.
no federal law for it. I don't even know if there's federal funding for it. This is just an attempt by Donald Trump to already sow doubt into the 2026 midterms. So when he loses one or both chambers of Congress, he can say, "Well, I tried to stop those cheating Democrats from doing this. The only reason they got in is they cheated with them mail-in ballots and they cheated with them dishonest voting machines." He's trying to pre-set up his argument for why he lost because he can't accept being a loser.
Well, yeah, and he's got a hint that he's probably going to lose in the midterms because of the people around him telling him that. Because people ask the simple question. Donald Trump claims, I heard him say it today at this meeting with the European people. I won in a landslide. Well, if you won in a landslide, why do you have to gerrymander shit? It makes no sense. He's already feeling the pressure of what's going on. He knows he's fucking up, and he knows he's probably going to lose in the midterms. But a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, well, he'll just cheat and they'll win the midterms and the Republicans will be in control. And I say, how are they going to do that? Well, with gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is unfair to a large degree, but like you say, it doesn't always work. I mean, if there's a inordinate amount of turnout, which there might be with the people suffering the way they're suffering, gerrymandering doesn't really make a fucking difference at that point, does it?
Not really. Voter turnout is the one thing that constantly works in the Democrats' favor. Their policies tend to be more popular, um, but that's only if there's the voter turnout. If Republicans have been trying to suppress the vote for a long time, that's like why they want to do things like voter ID laws and try to make it so it's harder for people to vote, for women to vote. Oh, well, your name has to match your birth certificate, and you got to bring all your name change documentation with you in order to vote. Those things that they want to do. That's why red states pass things like, I think it's Georgia, where it's actually a felony to give bottles of water to people standing in line waiting to vote.
Yeah.
Iowa changed the laws going into 2024. What did they do? They shrunk early voting by like 10 days, and they made it harder to get mail-in ballots out and things like that, because Republicans know when voters turn out, they lose. They can't win on policy, so they have to cheat. They gerrymander. They try to make it difficult to vote. If it was up to them, they'd probably still try to put out a poll tax if they could.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people go around looking for things to worry about, and people are upset and overwhelmed by what's going on now. And people say to me, "Why aren't you nervous about it?" And it's the way I think, and I think the way you think. There are a lot of things that we can't control, so to worry about them does no good. All we can do is worry about those things we can do, whether it be you and me here talking, those folks out there listening and talking to other people. That's what we can do. We have to believe that right will win out. And generally, it has in our history. Something like what's going on with Donald Trump and the Republicans right now is just not sustainable for the next couple of years. You can't continue to fail, cause people to suffer, and expect to hold power. It's just not going to happen.
You're right. And more than likely, Democrats are going to get control of at least one chamber of Congress, if not both, in the midterms. Republicans, if they continue to fail, they will lose power. It's going to happen. But the one thing Democrats need to remind people of, and I'm going to keep talking about it too, is that even if they win the House and the Senate in the midterms, they still don't have the presidency. They still can't change much. They can't
Right.
do a lot. And you need to remember that going into 28 then, and say, okay, well, if you really want to change away from these Republican policies, you got to give them all three branches like we did for Joe Biden in 2020. 2020
Right.
to 2022, when Joe Biden, or 21 and 22, when Joe Biden had both chambers of Congress, he was getting shit passed. He passed infrastructure. He passed the CHIPS Act. He passed that third round of stimulus checks. He passed a bunch of shit. Once you gave Republicans one of the chambers, nothing got done. And you got to make sure, after we put a stop to the bad that Donald Trump is doing, that's not the end of it. We need to see the other side of it, where a Democrat comes in with a favorable Congress where they can get shit done.
Well, and just a warning to those Democrats that didn't vote because they didn't like what Joe Biden was doing with Israel and Hamas, or those people that thought the economy was bad and they wanted prices to go down lower and they wanted inflation to go down lower. You didn't vote for Kamala Harris. And here's what you got. You got much higher prices and it continues to go up. You got people being rounded up, a genocide in Gaza. They're going to send them away to the deserts of Sudan or something, and Israel is going to occupy Gaza. Those people that didn't vote, I think, I think to a large degree, one of the biggest problems about November 5th was the Democrats who sat on their ass and didn't vote. Had they voted at the same level they voted for Joe Biden in 2020, it would have been a walkaway win. So the Democrats have to take responsibility, at least some of the responsibility, for where we are right now.
I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is I've talked about it before. Like I said, here in Iowa, they made it harder to mail in vote. They made it harder to early vote, et cetera, to limit the people who could vote. With mail in voting in the 2020 election, a lot of states did mail in voting. Everything got sent to your door, and literally all you had to do was fill it out. Everything to send it back was right there too, and you never had to leave your house.
Right.
And there were people in 2024 who weren't as interested in going to find a place to go vote, in part because thanks to Joe Biden, everything was doing better. And they
Right.
weren't as pressed about how bad it could be. And you're right. If Democrats show up in the numbers that they showed up for in 2020, there's no way Republicans win the midterms. And if they show up in 28 in those same numbers, there's no way a Republican wins the presidency.
Well, and if those people would have just shown up in 2024, we wouldn't be in this fix right now. So I do hold a lot of
Exactly.
Democrats who were too lazy or too whiny about what they wanted and couldn't see the forest for the trees. Um, do you think that? I mean, I personally think one of the reasons, other reasons Donald Trump won in 2024 is because they forgot about how bad it was in pre 2020 with COVID and all the other fucked up shit that Donald Trump did. I think they literally have such a short attention span that they forgot. Now we have a different situation going into the midterms and ultimately 2028. We're in the thick of Donald Trump's fuck ups. So nobody's going to forget when they can't afford groceries or their farm is going into bankruptcy. This is going to be right in their face, and they're not going to have the opportunity to forget because they're suffering terribly because of this regime.
Exactly. They usually say the American electorate has about a 6 month attention span when it comes to remembering how bad things are.
Seems right.
Um, and now that you're in the middle of it, yeah, they're going to be holding Republicans accountable for everything that happened. The problem is the reverse is also true in a way. If things are going really, really good under a Democrat, and things then there's just some slight inconveniences, those inconveniences get blown out of proportion, and that's how Democrats end up losing elections even though the economy ends up being really good.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, that's true. And hopefully that's going to change now with a Democratic Party that's going to be more aggressive with the likes of Gavin Newsom or Jasmine Crockett or something like that. They've got to recognize that they got to play this game differently than they have for the last 6 decades. They've got to be more aggressive. They've got to be in your face. You can't worry about norms and rules and laws and things because they no longer exist. As distasteful as that sounds, it's a fucking fact. You can't fight against lawless people by following the law. You just can't do it. They're going to cheat and they're going to win, and you're going to keep taking the high road, but at the same time, fucking losing. That's got to change.
Exactly. We got to do a more to keep pushing. And like one of the things I said that I wish Joe Biden would have done more of, he didn't crow nearly enough about his own achievements.
Yeah.
He just he signed things like the Infrastructure Act, and for the most part, I mean, you heard about it some, but Donald Trump, if he would have signed the Infrastructure Act, you would have heard about it every 3 days. He'd have been
Right.
bragging about it. You know, you couldn't forget about all the good things Donald Trump did because of how often he'd be in your face telling you about it. Democrats need to do more of that, being more in your face about how good things are because of the things they're doing and how their policies are working. Don't just do it and hope people are smart enough to see how much things have improved.
Right. Well, I think Democrats, like normal people like you or I, kind of dislike the idea of bragging. That's not polite. That's not appropriate. Don't brag about what you've done. But the fact of the matter is that's exactly what Donald Trump did, and it fucking worked. So whether your sensibilities allow you to do that or not, apparently it needs to be done in order to accomplish what we need to accomplish. Need to remind dumb fucks, yeah, we did some good for you. And as much as they may not like to do it, they're going to have to fucking do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're on the same page there. And the other thing that I think that hurt Kamala, I've talked about it before, is we need to get our own house in order.
Yeah.
Don't focus about running with like a Liz Cheney or anybody like that trying to scoop up disenfranchised Republican voters. Run the campaign you're going to run. Talk about the good things you're going to do, and the things where you're going to succeed at, and then just go from there. Let the Republicans come along if they want. If they want to jump sides and vote for you, they will. Spending the last 2 weeks of the campaign or 3 weeks, whatever she did with Liz Cheney, I guarantee you, hurt more than it helped because there were far left leaning people who couldn't bring themselves to vote for her because they thought she was too closely tied to Cheney and how bad they had the bad taste they had with the Cheneys. Get your house in order, get your voters in line, and let the Republicans do whatever they're going to do. If they're going to side with J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio or whoever the successor to Donald Trump is in 28, let them figure out that on their own. If they don't want to go that route and they want to vote for whoever we run, whether it's Gavin, whether it's Kamala Harris, whether it's Pritzker or whoever, they'll come along if they want to. Don't
Yeah.
try to scoop them up because it will cost you your own voters, and we don't need to fuck up again.
And Kamala did what she could to get some of the disenfranchised or the normal thinking Republicans, and it didn't work. I guarantee she didn't get any Republican votes. They just were not going to vote for a Democrat. It'd be cool if they just didn't vote at all. I'd be happy with that. But you can't get these people who are in a cult to follow you just because it's the right thing to do. Eric, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. We're about at that point. I want to thank you for coming on and let folks know where they can find you. Because if they haven't found you yet, they better get on their fucking bicycle and start looking.
The two places you can primarily find me are TikTok and on YouTube. I am Analytical Iowan on both. I say it all the time. If you find me on one, I've got a link tree. Will take you to the other. Um, and if TikTok does fuck around with its community guidelines and makes it so we can't make our content, well, I'll still be over on YouTube. I'll still be doing my stuff over there. So
Absolutely.
those are the two places you can find me. And I'm looking into doing maybe some more long form stuff, possibly over on YouTube too, depending on how my timing works out, etc. But for now, all my TikToks and any lives I do go up on YouTube whenever I get them done.
And people ask me, what are you going to do if they do what they're saying with the community guidelines? I'm not going to bend a knee to anybody. I'm going to do exactly what I do every day. And if they want to kick me off, then so be it. But I'm not changing what I do or how I do it just because they put some fear into me. I had people say to me, well, it's only temporary. If I do that one day, I'm a fucking failure. So I just keep doing what I'm doing. If they want to kick me off, we'll just have to deal with that. YouTube, Substack, Spotify. It's not hard to find me or Eric should that happen. So we'll just see.
Exactly. I'm not going to change my methods at all. I know TikTok's been messing with my videos. I'm lucky to get 300 views a video lately, pretty much all month.
Yeah,
My views are way down. I haven't changed anything about what I do, and I'm not going to change what I do. And if these new guidelines, you know, mess with it and they decide to kick me off or demonetize me or whatever, okay, cool. I'm still going to keep doing them. They'll just be up over on YouTube. You can find me over there.
absolutely. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.